meeting to order. So the meeting will be available on Zoom. The meeting ID is 844-6523-8259. The Zoom meeting password is FinCom, all capitals FINCOM. The Zoom chats will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. Note this meeting is being recorded for live broadcast and televised replay by Bourne TV. If anyone is audio or visual recording, please acknowledge it at this time. See none. Use of flash photography during Finance Committee meetings is prohibited. First item would be Reserve Fund Transfer, Public Works Overhead Door.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marlene, for sending us that background information.
Sure. So unfortunately, we had an accident at the Public Works building, and a trash truck damaged the door beyond repair, and the amount we're looking for is $23,000 so that we can fix that overhead door.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions about this reserve fund transfer?
No one was hurt, I hope?
No,
No, that's great.
just the door.
Just the door. And I noticed there's only one quote attached. Is that normal for this type of request?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We had to get something quickly to get, an idea of what we're looking for.
Okay. So we'll go with this quote and with this company.
This is the company that maintains all
our doors,
all
yeah.
our doors for all the buildings, yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Priscilla?
So, I noticed it said electrical is not included. So, will it be more than 23?
No,
Oh, okay. And then, was there any cause cited or any kind of malfunctioning? Or, SOPs that need to be changed or?
the director's memo in your packet describes their findings as far as what they think caused the accident.
And then, it's gonna be remediated, what the cause was.
What do you mean?
Could you possibly summarize what the cause was and what any kind of remedial changes?
So as his memo says, effective immediately, the timers and remote control operations on the vehicle storage bay garage doors have been shut off. And then he goes on to further detail.
Okay.
So there's more than one bay then? I guess there's more than one, yeah.
Yes.
Was it pretty, I would not have thought about the tire thing, but that was pretty cool.
Okay, any more discussion on this? Would anyone like to make a motion to transfer $23,000 from reserve fund?
So moved.
Second.
Wayne made the motion, Rich second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Oh, ayes have it, thank you. Next, reserve fund transfer, inspection of gym, the amount of $2,857.
Yes. Thank you. So, this is an issue at the gym here in this building that has come to our attention, and we really recommend that we bring this firm in to inspect our overhead equipment and give us a report on is everything in working order, and if not, what needs to happen next. This inspection came up after some staffing changes and some other, information came to light based on the staffing changes in the department and a recommendation from the new recreation director.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can you describe a little bit what the issues are?
So we want to inspect all of the overhead equipment, so the basketball equipment that comes down and the bleachers and curtains that come down. There's a lot of stuff in the ceiling, and we want to make sure it's all working properly.
Has there been an incident, or, I mean, what?
No. No, but it has not been inspected for many years, and it's beyond, it's, you know, it should be inspected more regularly than it has been.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Does this normally fall under the facilities? Okay,
Yeah.
that answers my question.
On the request form, it says the amount requested is 2,857, but the present balance in said appropriation is 16,000. I don't understand why, if it's less than, we have to approve.
We have some,
Sorry.
that's okay. We have some other routine, normal things that we know are going to be paid out of that line
Okay.
before the end of the fiscal year.
Very responsible of you.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Would someone like to motion to transfer $2,857 from our short
moved.
fund? Moved by Rich, second by Amanda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any noes? It's unanimous, thank you. All right, next, review town meeting articles, starting with Article 1, regular required authorizations.
So Article 1 is a standing article on every annual warrant, and it has these different areas that are all bundled together into the consent article. If there's any specific questions that the board members have, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Yes.
Yep. So just an overview of it is, you know, it says in most of them that there's not a set fee for each one of them for spending the money. Is this, shame on me for not noticing that we normally approve this each year?
Yep.
So it's just basically says that the town is allowed to spend whatever money we've set aside for those divisions during the year without having to come back to the town to ask for money?
Some of these are money like elected official salary, and some of them are just authorizations. So
Just, you're authorized, people in charge of that department are authorized to spend the money.
or authorized to sign contracts or enter into grants.
Okay.
They're not all spending authorizations.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Right, because a lot of them don't have cash.
Exactly.
Listed in them. Okay, thank you. But I don't have any questions to any of the specific ones.
Any more discussion on Article 1, regular required authorizations?
I would recommend approval of Article 1 as written.
Thank you. Well, we were going to take our votes on.
Oh,
April
that's
8th.
right, I'm sorry. Never mind.
So it's an important date for people to be here for April 8th, when we vote all these.
Is that when we're going to do the voting for each article?
Yes.
I think
Later,
April 8th.
yeah.
April
I will,
8th.
Sorry
I'm
about that.
out of the country.
Well,
Well, you'll have to come back.
You'll have to zoom
It's
in.
way more
I
important.
can try. If you need me to, I can zoom in.
well, our size has been officially reduced, right? As far as we know. So we,
I think Barry would have to confirm, but I thought it was as of Monday, but we can confirm on the posting.
I will check. We probably
Okay,
need,
but I'll be available if you need me.
all right, from some other country, thank you. Okay, Article 2, fiscal year 25, general fund operating budget.
Thank you. So, I do want to run through how the budget has changed. So there is a summary sheet in your packet, that I'll go through. And then also included in your packet are the updated pages for your budget books. As well as this afternoon, we forwarded an updated sources and uses. So the sources and uses, the numbers have not changed, but the column headings have changed since the version in your packet, so, but let me start by going through the changes since we've reviewed the budget last. The good news is that we have been able to balance everything and restore some of the cuts that I made in January. So if you're looking at the summary page, the first line is we were able to restore the $10,000 for recording secretary wages that I reduced in the TA budget that I presented on January 9th. We've also been able to restore the $10,000 for professional development that I cut out of the HR budget. So that is put back in. We have reset the facilities manager position after a staff turnover there. We are anticipating a retirement during this fiscal year in the building department, and we have reset those salaries, those salary dollars in that department based on that information. Both the Bourne Public Schools and Upper Cape Tech, you'll see have helped and have been able to narrow down their requests. So you'll see that the school department budget request went down by just under $70,000 since the January budget. And the Upper Cape Tech went down just over $100,000 since the January budget. So both of the school committees have been extremely cooperative and helping us close the budget gap. We've been able to restore the $7,500 cut to DPW contracted services. We have had some staffing changes in the health department, so resetting those salaries is shown in the health department budget. We have received the final assessment for the Veterans Services Officer, and that has gone up slightly, so we are absorbing just over a $4,000 increase there. We have had two positions turn over in recreation, so both of those positions are filled now, and the salaries are showing the actual need for FY25 based on the new staff. We're anticipating a $20,000 decrease to the natural gas line in the shared services sector, and that's partly in anticipation from the ESCO savings. We have been noticing this winter that our natural gas bills have been down. OPEB, we are funding per policy, and we're anticipating adding an additional $25,000 and change for a total, in addition to what we had already put as a placeholder in the TA budget. So good progress towards funding the OPEB liability. A big adjustment in group insurance. This is health insurance for employees. And the HR director, finance director, and I have met with the town's consultant. We use Cooking Company to consult for our health insurance. And we had budgeted a 2% increase in insurance premiums for FY25. After Cooking Company reviewed our claims history and the strength of our trust fund, they are actually recommending that we do not increase health insurance premiums. So that has been reset at a 0% for FY25, which was, so we realized just over $133,000 in savings there. the next line, we received a revised assessment from Barnstable County Retirement Board. Unfortunately, there was an error made, which caused our FY25 assessment to increase by just over $118,000. And we are making sure that we take full advantage of the early payment discount and every discount we can for that payment. And as you may know, as we talked about, I had originally reduced the reserve fund from $350,000 to $250,000 for FY25. We're able to put a little bit more back in that, so we're restoring $22,500 to offset that previous reduction. And that covers the budget deficit that we had been working towards closing.
Good, thank you. Any questions or comments on the general fund operating budget?
But still not able to restore, would we need additionally a DNR person and a building inspector?
So those are not restorals. Those would be new positions added. And some of the new positions, some of the most important new positions, at least in my opinion, are additional full-time building inspector, that is not funded,
Still not funded?
and a police lieutenant, which is not funded.
Okay.
Rick?
Yes, I have a question about state aid projections.
I'm gonna let Erica answer that.
Okay. Well, the question, the general state aid, you're projecting an increase of 69,000. But in the education, you're projecting a decrease, if I'm reading this correctly, of 174,442. And I'm just wondering, is this based on what we're hearing, or the increase, considering the fact that there's no, that the state isn't meeting its goals for revenue, where the increase comes from and why the decrease in school aid? So, did that make any sense?
No, I understand where you're coming from. So this is per the governor's budget. So there are a couple things that are in those numbers, which include like charter school and school choice. So those numbers tend to move up and down. So that's part of the reason why it looks like there's more than there's not. I can provide you the detailed sheet that shows the difference between each line item in the governor's budget to last year, but these are the net amounts that you're seeing here.
Okay. It's all speculation at this point, so it's,
Right, I mean, the state budget is not final yet, so we're working off of the best available information we have right now.
thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this? Okay, thank you. Next, fiscal year 25 sewer budget, Article 3.
Thank you. There's another summary sheet for the sewer enterprise fund after the budget book revisions. And 3 adjustments have been made since we've talked about the sewer department last. One is that the DPW director has been able to go back and really look deeply into the actual costs that we are paying for sludge removal. So that wasn't something that was not something that we had a lot of clarity on prior to the DPW director coming on board. And the way sludge removal works is it's a pass-through cost from the contract operator. So Weston and Sampson operates your sewage treatment plant, and they contract with haulers to remove the sludge. They schedule it, and then they pass on the costs to the town. Those costs are significant and are not going down. Sludge is not easy to dispose of. So we have requested from the sewer commissioners, and the sewer commissioners have voted to increase the sludge removal line by $68,000 for FY25, so we can budget more accurately for those actual costs that we're seeing. The sewer commissioners also voted to add an additional $10,000 to the new equipment line in the operating budget for the sewer system. We are struggling a bit and working hard to kind of grasp the frequency of changing out some of this equipment. So we are making a much more concerted effort to put things on schedules and check them more regularly and not wait for a catastrophic failure. But we have equipment, we're identifying equipment that needs to be changed. So that's what that additional $10,000 is for. And then a very small adjustment just to correct an error in the admin fee. So those are the indirect costs, and we were off by $100. So we just are correcting that mistake.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on the sewer budget? Okay, looks like none. Thank you. Next, ISWIM budget.
So there are no changes proposed, no adjustments proposed to the ISWIM, so it's staying the same based on the prior presentations. But if there are questions, we have ISWIM here.
Thank you. Any discussion on the ISWIM budget? Okay, thank you. Next, Article 5, fiscal year 25 capital budget update. First subsection, request from ISWIM.
So if you recall, there was one piece that was a to be determined, and that was the office and garage building for ISWIM. And as they explained in January, they were still working with Weston and Sampson to do the feasibility study. So that is complete, and Dan and Asa are here to talk to you about it. One thing I will say is we are most likely going to move this particular request for OPM and designer money out of the annual town meeting warrant and move it to the special town meeting warrant, so we can start spending those funds in FY24, because they are under some time pressure. But I'll turn it over to Dan and Asa.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Barrett, I'm the General Manager of the Integrated Solid Waste Management Enterprise Fund, and also with me tonight is the Ops Manager, our in-house engineer. He's taken lead on this through most of it. It's new to us, I will tell you that. Marlene's been a fantastic help to us. We build liners and caps and dirt things. We don't build a lot of buildings. The hustle, or I guess, or the time strain that Marlene referred to was, we started filling the horizontal expansion horizontal part of our expansion, which is gonna buy us about 5 years. But when we expand horizontally to the south, we're gonna have to move about half a million, well, probably about 300,000 yards of dirt.
150,000 yards.
So we gotta do that, we have to start that very quickly, and then build a liner to go in behind it. We did devise a schedule that we presented to Marlene, to show her when we needed to do that. Where we're gonna start digging is right where our office trailers are sitting right now. So we don't wanna have to move those trailers. I don't think they'd survive a move, to be honest with you. They're in pretty tough shape. They're not ours, we rent them. I guess we're gonna try to build a building, now that we know our full footprint build out that I explained to you guys the last time. I won't bore you with that again, but we know where we can put this building where it's gonna be out of the way. It's not gonna be in the way of the landfill or anything else, which is pretty unusual, especially when you have 20 years of life out in front of you. You don't usually have that luxury. So the good news is that, with that 20 years in front of us, we have funding capabilities. We're going to try to pay for it, obviously, as much as we can with cash. Marlene and Erica will direct us on how they want us to do that. But we're going to try to it's always been my goal to keep debt down. We've taken some huge steps over the last couple of years to do that. So moving right along, as Marlene said, did these guys get the packet so you saw the plans and what you didn't see was the actual footprint of where everything's gonna go. You just saw it where it fits on the parking lot. That kinda drives me nuts, but Ace is the site planner. I wanna know where everything's gonna sit in the building. But Weston and Sampson did an excellent job. They obviously have a lot of experience. They've done a lot of garage areas around here, including Bourne, and have been very successful. So we trusted them. We called them up, and they came in and started work right away. As you remember, we were here earlier. Our goal was to get to the point where we can get to construction drawings by Springtown meeting, and so that's where we're heading. Tonight, we're here to ask for that money, which would include 100% drawings, I believe, Marlene, right?
Yes.
Construction
Ready to
drawings.
bid.
Exactly, ready to go. And that'll be $1,917,000 to get us there. And then, as she said, you're gonna move it up to special so we can get going right away. And get moving on that, and we'll be able to start working, hopefully by the time we pick the OPM, and all, it'll probably be next spring, but that's kind of how we have it scheduled. Anything we can do in the winter, we'll do, because we're there, we'll do a lot of the site development ourselves anyway, which we already have, so. Any questions on that, or?
We will be recommending that the source of funds be ISWIM retained earnings. Yep.
Were you looking in there today? No, that's fantastic with Erica on board the last couple of years, and as you've all heard me harp forever, we've nailed down the debt. I mean, for the size of the operation you have up there, and I'm going to probably misquote this, but I believe our outstanding long-term debt right now is like 3.3 or 3.4 million. So that, for a facility that size, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy about that. And we haven't capitalized anything or borrowed anything in probably 4 or 5 years anyway. So that's a good way to be. But we do have that option if we need to with that much life out in front of us.
So is the article going to be for 1.9 million at this meeting? And then the next meeting will be for the money to actually build?
Yeah, to go out to bid.
To actually go out and bid. Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Thank
And
you.
then there's Weston and Sampson's, you might have saw their estimate. I think there's 1.2 million left in the development section of it, and that's for construction observation, watching, CQA.
To watch somebody else build it?
Yeah, to do the monitoring.
The oversight.
Oversight, okay.
Oversight, thanks. Term I was looking for.
Rich?
Can you, the debt we have or any debt we're expecting, are we planning that, the length of that, those debt instruments to be no longer than the length of the life of the facility?
You know me, Rich. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options out there now. The bond anticipation note system has changed. I'm not going to speak to that. I mean, Erica and Marlene and Mike can speak to that. But that's what's helped us out a lot. You know, I'm not even going to go into the details of it as I know them, but it's pretty favorable. From my perspective anyways, we can borrow a certain amount of time, whether it's 10 years. We can pay principal and interest. If we get in trouble, this is where I'm always looking, is if ISWIM for whatever reason gets in trouble, and it happens, you know, the economy goes down. We saw it in 2008, 2009. We took a little bit of a beating there. Then we can back off, and we can go back to bonding it beyond what we need to. So the good news is we have options, and I'm not going to speak any further because Erica's going to kill me. But she'll be able to tell you better what we're going to do. But that's our state of mind. Yeah, we want to.
And with the new cells you're creating, what is the projected remaining life of the facility?
As I always say, a good landfill manager will tell you it depends. But status quo, the way we're operating now with Covanta and that type of system, you know, there's soils out there that are going for decent money now, and there's plenty of trash out there. But going the way we're going right now, it'll get us out to about 2041, 2045, somewhere in there.
Thank you.
So these buildings, their life could exceed that, right? Would we find other uses for them?
The whole idea here, or the long-range plan, I obviously won't be around to see it, but the plan is to build these buildings and have them be there when the landfill closes, and then we'll build a state-of-the-art, or somewhere in there, we'll build a state-of-the-art transfer station, and then start transferring off the Cape. Keep ISWIM alive.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this request from ISWIM? All right, thank you, Mr. Barrett.
No problem. I think we had some other capital questions.
I had a couple of questions, but one was, like, is there room for value engineering? Because I noticed you went from 23 FTEs to 5 FTEs. And something that Jim touched upon was, you know, what's the future use of the building? Because you have a lot of square footage, the 5 FTEs, or maybe I'm misunderstanding.
No, I mean, you're looking at the workforce, that's for the next 20 years. That can change over time.
I just want to be clear that that is adding 5.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
Yeah, for a total of 28.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we've always maintained fully staffed, that's where we need to be, and when we're active.
Okay, I was wondering whether it was gonna be AI operating the facility or.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't know. But another thing is, in the, let's see, the size of the offices, I mean, this is getting down to nitty-gritty, which may
It's okay.
change.
Okay.
But it's indicated, you know, when you're in your chart, one of your charts early on, that the size of each office would be roughly 15 by 15?
Yeah, 12
Is
by
that for
16.
one person?
Yeah, the admin staff, myself, Aces may end up being a little bit bigger because he has, you know, more equipment and plans. We have equipment room for him and his GPS equipment. But myself, Phil Goddard, the compliance manager, and Paula Colomb, she's accounts receivable and payable, will be 12 by 16.
Yeah, that's quite large, but, and then when you have your 3D diagrams, they seem significantly smaller.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's why it drives me nuts. I mean,
Is that kind of the wiggle room where you can value engineer, or?
exactly. When we start setting stuff down, we know that some of these sizes are gonna change. You know, who needs more room? we're gonna put all that together inside that footprint that you see. We'll put those boxes in there and see where they fit. Weston and Sampson, I'm sure, has already started doing that. And then we can start moving stuff around.
Sure.
So that's kind of where we are.
And then, in the end, and sorry, Jim talked about it, was, would the building be used, could the building be used by the community for, like, your conference space or the training room? Could they conceivably use it for something other than
While we're in operation?
transfer station?
Oh, you mean after we close?
Well,
Yeah.
either or.
Yeah, that'll be up to the town completely. And, you know, with that open space, I envision it to be sort of like, you know, the fire department, sometimes they open up headquarters for training. Police station has
Sure.
training, DPW has training. You know, we'd like to join that club too, so absolutely, if we can be of service,
Sure.
absolutely,
It's a great opportunity for even high school students to learn about it,
absolutely.
so, or, you know, Mass Maritime students. Great,
Yep,
thank you.
It's wide open.
Thank you. Any more ISWIM questions or comments? All right, thank you. Next, discussion on the history of the middle school roof leaks and the outlook for repairing those leaks. Yeah, certainly.
Good evening, everyone. Jordan Geis, Business Director, Dr. Joe, Superintendent of Schools. I prepared a brief history of the middle school roof based off of the simple question that was passed our way. Do you want me to start with that?
Yes.
Okay. So as you all know, the school opened in, I believe it was 2000. Before my time in my current role, I was 5 years into teaching at that point. I remember watching them build it while I was on lunch duty every day. In 2010, the solar went on the roof, and plays a critical role in why we are where we are right now. There's a 15-year contract that's in place that doesn't expire until the summer of 2025, and that is with Con Ed and the Cape and Vineyard Electric Cooperative, CVEC. We are getting the ball rolling. We have a meeting tentatively scheduled for the first week of April with Con Ed and CVEC to talk about the process in getting the solar off the roof once our contract is complete with them. And I really want to give a great shout out to Marlene, who I think it was her second week on the job, jumped right into researching all the stuff with the solar. She's been a great resource for the school department. Sort of the history of the leaks. I did a lot of research through the one file that I have of some of the history. It was sort of incomplete, but what I pulled together was that in 2011, the school department reached out to Con Ed and CVEC, excuse me, due to the numerous leaks that the school department attributed to the solar installation. There was a reply email. I can't verify anything that the person from Con Ed said, but he did note in that email that the pre-existing conditions on the roof were well documented in the summer of 2009 during the planning phase. There was something like over 150 pictures taken. There were numerous backed out nail heads on the asphalt shingles that their general contractor addressed around the solar installation areas. So backed out nails, obviously they come up and then water can go down. So that's, we're up to 2011. In 2013, there was an assessment done of the middle school roof that was completed by Gale. The assessment noted many deficiency in the roofing systems and many leaking classrooms. The report noted that while there were issues where the solar was located, there were issues elsewhere as well. In 2020, I think I started in 2017, 2018, we had Gale do another full assessment of the middle school, a complete building envelope, because the water penetration isn't just attributed just to the roof. There was also issues with the masonry joints where water can penetrate. A lot of the caulking around the windows where water can penetrate. There were missing shingles. Some louvers that were bent out of shape were missing as well. And at that time, we sat down with the town to talk about a plan moving forward on how to get the middle school roof where we want it to be, which is not leaking. You know, in that 2020 report, you know, it was noted that there were active or inactive leaks just based off of the stainage in the ceiling tile. And I think every single classroom on the second floor except one and the stairwells. So it's pretty extensive. It does depend on which way the wind is blowing up there on the hill, to be honest. Sometimes, you know, there's 3 or 4 active leaks in a rainstorm in some areas, and then the next time there's 6 or 7 in another area, depending on which direction the rain is coming from. So when we met with the town, and, you know, we were pushing for a new roof. We did some more research into the solar, and at that time, MJ was a big part of the discussion as well. It was decided that we were going to address a lot of the issues with the water penetration that we could, as far as the masonry issues, the caulking around the windows. We replaced a small roof over the gymnasium entranceway as well. And we, you know, some of the, you know, $300,000+ that the town put forward for capital went to working up on the roof and replacing, you know, missing shingles or bent louvers, and also just pounding in nails and sealing them again. We knew going in that that was a temporary fix to get us over the hump until the 2025, when the solar can come off the roof. And that's basically where we are now, continuing to work with the town to move a capital item forward for next year for the roof. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is a dual path, and this might be news to Erica and Marlene, so I apologize. The MSBA Accelerated Repair Program has changed a bit. It was offline last year. Due to all the rising costs, labor shortages, they just put a halt to it. So there is pent-up demand for when it opens up again in FY25. We could not apply this year in FY24 for the accelerated repair program because the roof has to be 25 years old when you apply. So next year in 25, we can apply. Having said that, they haven't accepted a roof that's been 25 years young since, I think it's 2018, maybe 2019. You can apply, but they haven't accepted them. It might change. My guess is with the pent-up demand, with it being shut down last year, and the fact that they're moving to a 2-year cycle, there's going to be a huge demand for FY24 and FY25 to get into the accelerated repair program. So we really need to plan for both avenues, which is going to take a lot of coordination with the town and article language, because it's a very specific format for the vote language. We've been through it before. To get, you know, the first step next year would be to get a warrant with all the required language for the design and the OPM. Those have to be, you have to be able to sign a contract within, or fund that within 90 days of being accepted into the program, and you have to fund the whole project within 1 year. So the timeline's pretty straightforward. So at this point, you know, met with, you know, obviously the Budget Facility Subcommittee. We feel that the best path forward to ensure that we get a roof on there as fast as possible is to pursue both the MSBA, because it does give us, you know, typically a 47-48% reimbursement. It does cost a little bit more as well, but definitely we have to go for that reimbursement. It's the right thing to do. But if we don't get accepted in the program, we wouldn't, and we reapplied in 2027, we're looking at a build for a new roof in 28, 29, 29, 30, based off how the MSBA is operating. And we don't feel that that's a viable solution for our students, our teachers, and the community, based off the condition of the roof. So we'll also be requesting 3.5 million to do the roof on our own if the MSBA falls through. So that's where we've been, that's where we're headed.
Jordan, you knew I was gonna ask a question. Can we do the roof and then go to the state hoping for reimbursement for their some percentage, or it's one way or the other?
No, it's very, very strict. Yep.
So the state.
They don't even like us, they don't like us, but they understand because of the timing of town meetings and all of that, to use their language before, like to be able to fund the design, basically. It says you can do it, they don't like it, but they understand that timing's an issue. But yeah, you have to be accepted, get it funded in 90 days, the design, and then fund the whole thing within a year. It's very scripted. You can't, there's no backtracking.
So because it's a 2-year cycle now and the pent-up demand, and most of the roofs don't get funded 27, 30 years or more, we haven't seen a 25-year roof in a very long time. Really what we weigh out is, if we're waiting till 2030, would the costs have risen so out of control that it wouldn't even be worth what we'd get in reimbursement?
The history of that building, or building that building, was fraught with contractor issues and plan issues, and an architect that quit in the middle. It was a nightmare, but I'm not, it's been leaking now for how long?
Based off the emails that I looked, it was, the school department reached out, what did I say, in 2010? 2011.
Yeah, it was
To
already
Con
a
Ed,
big problem.
and, you know, and they said,
Not our problem.
yeah, they said, we documented it very well, and everyone seemed very happy with the project when you signed the contract. You know, I can't confirm that they have those pictures, I don't have that information, but
Thank you.
it's a part of the story, nevertheless.
Amanda?
What do you mean it would cost more to go through the state program?
Well, there's just mandated costs through that process. You know, just how it's put together. You know, you don't get to choose an OPM, you don't get to choose a designer, they do all that for you. You know, there's, some of the costs are controlled, but, you know, it definitely can cost a little bit more, but nowhere near the reimbursement that you can get.
Historically,
I
projects
shouldn't have
been more-
overstated that, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Are the leaks causing additional damage inside the building?
So, you know, we have it down pat, pretty much on how to deal with it. You know, after any rainy weekend, the morning custodian goes in early. Sometimes I show up too if it's been really bad to see if I can lend a hand, and we find out where the leaks were. The last time there was a bad one and I was there, you know, there was three or four rooms, you know, where we might have lost a ceiling tile that collapsed. You know, if it rains heavily during the day from a specific direction and we're not paying attention to the ceiling tiles, you know, there has been on occasion, probably 2 or 3 times a year, where it comes down during class.
We move the students.
Yeah, so,
Thanks. All right, thank you.
and
Any more?
we just keep replacing ceiling tiles. That's the ongoing cost at this point.
Well, thank you for looking into that. You know, we have new members and lose the oral history, so it's helpful.
That's the moral history,
That's why I relied on him. He's been here a little longer than I have.
just a little.
And it's not, I mean, I know somebody has more damage and it's just ceiling tiles, but I know that if I have a leak in my roof, it hits the insulation, it hits the sheetrock, and I worry about mildew. Do we have the same problem at the school?
Well, just based on how the school's built, it's not like a flat roof building where everything's stacking up. There's a lot of air because it's got eaves that allow circulation. The test cuts that I had them do in 2020, just to get a visual of any interior damage, didn't note anywhere they did the test cuts. They said it was random, but they focused around the areas where the solar was. There was some rusting of steel beams, and sometimes that rust water drips down and it looks very unsightly.
Right.
we haven't had any reports of mold or mildew.
No.
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that there's cavities above and a lot of air movement up above.
Thank you. Any more? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
So next, kind of a general discussion on projecting needs and budgeting for maintenance of the town's facilities and equipment, including vehicles.
So I'm happy to defer to Wayne as the chairman of the Capital Outlay Committee or answer any questions.
I don't have any records with me, so.
Okay.
I have a couple of comments. It's just that I, as a new member, did have a lot of concerns about, I think it's great to have a growth mindset, but we have to also maintain our assets. So I didn't know how much of that is involved in your thought process for the budget. I mean, how do you look at this? And what funding, I was trying to figure out what funding in the numbers I've seen account for your thought process of maintaining.
I mean, my information is that there's a strong maintenance program throughout the town in all the different departments, and that a lot of their vehicles are on a schedule for, for replacement at certain phases. And that's what seems to come before us.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm thinking in terms of also the middle school, like the maintenance of the roof and that kind of thing. So I'm just trying to,
We've been
Get
talking
it.
about the middle school for the
yeah.
5 years I've been on the committee.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm the new kid on the
Yeah.
block. So I just kind of wanted to get a sense of how the town looks at that.
I can speak on the school's behalf, just how it's part of our regular operating budget request. It does make up a component of it, just ongoing maintenance and upkeep of both vehicles and buildings. So, for example, this doesn't include custodial equipment, custodial salaries, or maintenance salaries. We have budgeted $335,000 for tackling any issue that comes up during the year with our buildings and grounds. So that's both. Our vehicle maintenance is budgeted for around $50,000 a year at this point. It probably needs to go up a little bit. It's a little bit underfunded. But, we have, three or four, work trucks for our maintenance department. And then we also maintain a small fleet of our minibuses as well. And we've seen those costs escalate too. So it's something that we constantly have to keep an eye on and trim from somewhere else to keep up with those costs that have changed so dramatically in the last 3 years or so.
Now, do those numbers represent like a percentage of something? How do you come up with those?
So really, I
metrics
typically go for like
Historical?
a 3-year running average. That's the methodology I use. What we
Okay.
spent for the last 3 years, and then
Okay, thank you.
Go there.
Appreciate it.
thanks.
Any more discussion on the maintenance issue?
So can I ask the question maybe a different way?
Yeah.
So what's the approach to capital and facilities? Are we assessing everything and then prioritizing the needs, and that's what comes up on the schedule before us, and maybe anything urgent gets bumped ahead of something else? I think that might ultimately be what the question was.
Yes, yeah, so we're working to create the inventory, assess, do the assessments. As you know, deferred maintenance has been long and ongoing, so it's not that, we can't turn the ship around in a year or two when there's been decades of deferred maintenance, but we are assessing it and prioritizing it and seeing what assets are at risk versus what is just nice to have, and certainly trying to prevent any damage first.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any more discussion on this? Okay, thank you. So next, Article 9, Stabilization Fund.
Erica, I'm actually going to defer to you for Article 9 and 10.
Sure, so Article 9, would be a contribution to our stabilization fund. Our current financial policy is to maintain at least 6% of the general fund operating budget. As of right now, I'm recommended $200,000 to be transferred to the stabilization fund. It is still early in the year. Currently, the fair market value does meet that requirement. But again, we have some of these funds invested and whatnot, so fair market value can change between now and June 30th. Any questions regarding stabilization?
What's the purpose of the stabilization fund? Hi, Erica.
Right.
Hi.
The stabilization fund is kind of like our rainy day fund. It's essentially our savings account that we can access if a town meeting vote would be required if there should be a need.
Okay.
So that one's our general purpose.
So if the roof fell in tomorrow, we could use part of that operating budget, stabilization budget.
Actually, the next one,
Oh,
the capital,
Okay.
so the general stabilization fund is really if we're facing a significant downturn in receipts
Okay.
and we need to
Oh, right.
fund our
So it's not-
operations.
Okay, all right, so it's not to spend more money, it's in case we don't take in as much.
Pretty much. So the stabilization fund is if we can't meet payroll because of an economic downturn, town meeting could decide rather than cutting staff or rather than, if we're thinking that it's going to be limited, it's not a permanent change, it's just a year or so.
Okay.
Then town meeting could choose to fill a budget gap with stabilization funds rather than doing layoffs or an override. But it's really, it's your general rainy day savings account.
Thank you. So that brings us to the Capital Stabilization Fund, Article 10.
Sure. So the capital stabilization fund is a special purpose stabilization fund used for capital related items. So what the practice has been in the last few years is to transfer funds into this account from free cash to offset future debt payments. So this is the amount that we would need to bring us up to that amount. So that's $296,000 we're anticipating this year.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the Capital Stabilization Fund? Thank you. So next, future agenda items. So on that schedule Marlene sent out some time ago, we don't meet next week. We go to April 1. I think, right?
I don't recall offhand, I can
Yeah,
check.
that was the original schedule. And the April 1 meeting will be at 6:30 rather than 7, because the chairman of the CPC committee is going to come to explain the CPC process. And then we meet a week later to vote on the items. And that might be the end if we can, for this cycle, if we can get everything done. All right, next, the minutes of February 5th, which we had last week, but the agenda had the wrong date, so we've all had a chance to look at this. Is there any discussion on the minutes of February 5th? Would someone like to make a motion to approve them?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Kathy, second by Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any noes? No, it was unanimous. Thank you. And next meeting is 2 weeks from now, April 1.
On the 8th, we will have a complete, a list of all the articles, all completely written. This will be-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You'll have the articles, the rest of the articles by the 1st.
By the 1st, okay, fabulous.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Amanda, second by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye is unanimous. Thank you.